Just stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Take roll call first, right?
Yes.
Go ahead. Stacy's gonna take roll call first.
Councilman Gary Donovan,
Councilman Gary Donovan, Councilman at Large, present.
Councilwoman Colleen O'Connor,
Councilwoman Colleen O'Connor, Council at Large here.
Councilman Ronald Quagliani,
Here.
Councilwoman Bridget Hosky is currently not here. Councilwoman Melly Garthwaite,
Councilwoman Millie Garthwaite, second district present.
Councilwoman Sarah Aquarelli,
Councilwoman Sarah Afrali, third district present.
Councilman Mitchell Galagnano,
Councilman Mitchell Galagnano, fourth district present.
Councilwoman Robin Watt Hamilton,
Councilwoman Robin Hamilton, fifth district present.
Councilwoman Catherine Tucker,
Councilman Catherine Tucker, seventh district present.
Councilman Victor Boris,
Councilman Victor Boris, tenth district present.
Councilman Robert Bruno,
Robert Bruno, ninth district, present.
Councilman Stephen Johnstone,
Councilman Stephen Johnstone, 10th District, present.
and Chairman Peter Massaro.
Chairman Peter Massaro, 6th District Councilman present. I would like a motion that the council meeting goes into executive session at 6:30 PM. Do I have a second?
Make a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any discussion? Any abstentions? Good, motion passes. We're in executive session. You want? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're in public session. Would anybody like to come up and address the council?
Who's gonna read that one?
Before we do that, we got a letter we want to read into the record first. I'm sorry.
Just gonna read this one letter into the record. It's from Patricia Bollettieri from 215 West Walk. Dear Chairman Massaro, after listening to Robin Parsons' statement to the City Council on February 13th regarding the artificial turf project, I wanted to add my voice and ask you and the City Council to reconsider your approval of this project. Although we often hear artificial turf projects justified on the basis that harmful health effects have not been proven, neither has safety been proven. When it comes to our children, we should always err on the side of caution. Artificial turf is made of plastic and toxic chemicals and reinforced with scrap contaminated rubber. These components are kicked up in the air, inhaled and ground into the earth with use and unknown consequences. With rain, chemicals can leach into the groundwater again with unknown long-term health and environmental consequences. After about 10 years, the turf itself has to be disposed of and then replaced with new product or perhaps a different formulation. No one really knows the long-term health repercussions of exposure to these different formulations. And with West Haven's track record of infrastructure deterioration, we can't count on proper maintenance. To make a well-informed decision rather than a hasty one, please consult with the necessary experts to ask questions and to get a more balanced view. The public should also be given more time to hear from both sides and to provide more input into the process. Thank you, Patricia Bollettieri.
Thank you, Steve.
You're very welcome.
Okay, now, anybody want to come up and address the council? Whenever, yes, Mr.
Pledge?
So we already had the pledge, we already did it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kathy Hebert from 166 Bloom Street, West Haven, and I'm inviting you all to a cleanup on Marginal Drive this Saturday. I know it's winter, kind of, and but we can see the garbage without all the leaves and the brush. We're also cutting down, volunteers are cutting down a lot of brush with clippers and stuff like that, making a new trail. And I don't have the flyer, it's in my car, but please come at 10 a.m. this Saturday, and I'll hope to see you there. Bye.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Rich Hebert, 166 Bloom Street. I'd like to support Melly Garthwaite on her proposal that we create an ordinance to forbid hunting and gust discharging for the entire West Haven shoreline, and no shooting from boats either. It has nothing to do with hunters, but it's a safety issue, and it's with everything that's going on, it's just something that we can do something about by creating such an ordinance. I have questions about what happened with the finance director. I'll let you folks tell us about that later because it's a puzzle. We've had 2 finance directors in a year. It's problematic. How are we going to straighten out? The Arts Center status. Is there an update on that? Can you folks help us with that? I am impressed that they started doing some work on the First Avenue, clearing some of the buildings down there. Hope that continues. And my last item is the roads and potholes. I know that you can't do a complete replacement of the surfaces, but some of the potholes are 6 to 8 inches deep, and you cannot see them. If it rains out or if it's dark, you're into the hole before you even know it's there. So that is a problem, and I hope that somebody can pull some strings or do whatever you have to do, because it doesn't take much to take a bag of the temporary patch and put it down, and that will work for a while. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to come up and address the council? Anybody else like to come and address? Mr. Hickey?
First of all, 32 Bungalow Lane, Michael Hickey. Anybody got these in their rubbish pails? All right, talk about littering. City has no problem. They're all over the street. I want no part of this, period. This was a volunteer system. I don't want anything to do with it, and you're not going to force me to do it. I got other things to do in my life than separate garbage. I see we didn't remove the comments procedure. I do assume that for $400,000 a year, corporate counsel has advised you whether this is legal or illegal. And if he has, then he's here right now. If he could bring me the written law that says you can circumvent the First Amendment, I'd like to see it. Because if not, remove it. You're not going to tell me how I can speak, who I can speak to, and what I can say. It's a violation of my First Amendment. I got police officers sitting right out there right now. They are bound by the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, particularly the 4th and the 5th. If you don't ask me, ask Councilman Quigliani. What makes you think as a government entity that you can violate my First Amendment? Unrestricted is exactly what it is. I'm not yelling fire in a crowded theater just to say fire. But trust me, if there is a fire in the theater, I hope somebody yells for it so I can get the heck out. All right? Even that's up for grabs. I told Jimmy O'Brien, and now I'm telling you. I mean exactly what I say. If you do not remove this, I will start the action to take you all to federal court, and you can explain to a judge what gave you the right to violate my constitutional rights. I will make you all famous, but not in the way West Haven wants. You're not in enough court now? Not that I can afford it, but I learned one thing in my life, some things I can't afford not to do. I mean what I say, and I do as I mean.
Thank you, Mr. Hickey. Anyone else like to come up and address the council? Would anybody else? Yes, Mr. Mullins. Don't forget, you got a minute.
I was actually about to ask you how much time I've got, so. Last time I was here, I rushed it at the end because I thought my time was running up. So realistically, how much time I got? Oh. All right, if this hasn't happened yet, maybe it happened, well, before you, oh, Stephen Mullins, 22 Oak Road, West Haven, Allentown. Perhaps this happened after your Pledge of Allegiance, but I'm sure you gave due honor and respect to the late dispatcher Richard Garcia, whose funeral was held today, who died last week after a long battle with cancer, and may his soul rest in peace. Also want to recognize the fact that Councilwoman Tucker was named our African American citizen, our Black Heritage Citizen of the Year. Congratulations, Dr. Tucker. All right, now the stuff that I really don't want to talk about, but I've got to talk about. So last Tuesday evening, Mayor Rossi hosted a town hall style meeting downstairs in the Harriet C. North meeting room. Now, as you all know, these meetings are a question and answer session. The forums are usually held every few months. During that town hall, I asked Her Honor about her constant absence from city council meetings and why. If she is not personally able to attend, why does she not have a representative here in her place? And she responded to me by saying that Scott Jackson attends the council meetings on her behalf and can answer all questions. Well, 3 days after that town hall, Finance Director Scott Jackson suddenly, without warning, quit his position at City Hall. And I say quit with quotation marks. According to news reports and witnesses that I personally spoke to, West Haven police had gathered at City Hall that morning to escort Mr. Jackson from the building. Mr. Jackson came to us a year ago with a wealth of knowledge and expertise, having served as mayor of the town of Hamden, finance director of Hamden, commissioner of the State Department of Labor, and a member of the MARB during West Haven's infancy with the agency. Mr. Jackson certainly proved his leadership capability. At a time when we have headlines that say, quote, MARB mulls full state takeover of West Haven to address compliance issues, this is not the time to be without a finance director. As I look around, including the gold-plated seat that, for whatever reason, Stacey Riccio is occupying, the mayor is absent yet again. Now, I've said this time and time again. Now, the city can be managed in a business corporate type style if you've got the mindset of that. The mayor can serve as the CEO of the city, the council, the board of directors, us, the taxpayers, the shareholders. The mayor comes, or the CEO comes and reports to the board and the shareholders. What's going on? Listens to concerns, listens to complaints, and it's part of the conversation. But we don't have that. We haven't had it in a long time. We haven't had it in months, maybe even a couple of years at this point. West Haven has turned into the entertainment of the rest of the state of Connecticut. We are simply the laughing stock. Mrs. Rossi and her administration have turned into a joke. Now, at last week's town hall meeting, the mayor was asked by a member of the public whether or not she was running for re-election this year. And she said that her mind was not made up yet. Mrs. Rossi, you do not need to run for re-election. As a matter of fact, for the sake of all of us, you should resign immediately. This city cannot afford to continue to go into this downward spiral for the next 9 months. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Anybody else would like to get up and address the council? Anybody else like to get up and address the council? Yes.
Good evening, all. John Lewis, 10 Peppermill Drive, West Haven. I recently listened to the last MARB meeting and was quite disturbed. Colleen was on it and a few others. The idea of moving funds, and I don't know if the council is aware, I'm sure you guys, I hope you're aware, that the funds that were overspent by the administration's top leaders there, the funds that were spent, they were moved to the police overtime budget. The MARB was quite concerned. I'm quite concerned. I haven't heard anything that anyone has really addressed that yet. I think it kind of teeters on criminal personally, but I think there's an issue there. No money is to be moved without a 2/3 vote of the council, I believe, and I think you guys know that. I assume that was to cover up, to make sure that there wasn't a hole, but I don't know. I'm making assumptions that are not necessary. I believe Colleen said that the council, they did it without council's approval. That's kind of a no-no. I don't know if that was why what's happened in the last week with the finance director has happened, but I know somewhat of Scott, and I believe he's a great guy. And I just, I don't think we really want Waterbury's, what happened in Waterbury to happen here. They did say it would be without opening up contracts, but having them take over the city is probably not something that we really want. So I hope that the council attends to this, and I'm assuming that you guys are behind the scenes. I'm gonna ask my councilman to follow up with me on this, because this is not good. Some of you, I served on this council with some of you, and it just wouldn't have been allowed. We're not, you guys aren't co-signers, you guys are to represent us, the residents. So I hope it's taken seriously, and quite a few other things that are taking place here, whether it be the mayor's new vehicle. It's awfully nice. Some people had pictures of it with car seats in it, so this is going to be an interesting spring and fall here, guys. But we need to right this ship. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Anyone else like to come and address the council? Would anybody else like to come up and address the council? Third and final time, would anybody else like to come up and address the council? Public session is now closed. And we'll start the regular meeting at 7:26. 26. Oh, yeah. I would like to add into finance communication E tonight's meeting. Communication E from Dave Taylor, the Assistant Finance Director, regarding an ordinance to appropriate $13,894,100 from the fiscal year of 2022-2023 in the capital plan, and to authorize the insurance of $13,894,100 bond plus additional financing cost of the cities to meet the certain fiscal year of 2022-2023 capital budget appropriations, and depending on the insurance thereof, making the temporary borrowing for such purposes. I hear a motion to add it. Here a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
There's nobody here from the finance department, right, to talk to us tonight about this?
No, I guess, Leah, you have anything about this
Bonding? No, from the finance
from the
department.
finance?
Nobody's from the finance department here.
There's no one here from the finance department to talk about the bonding, and is it?
Right.
You have, do you have the list of exhibits of what would be bonded?
No, nobody here. Anybody else?
Discussion would be,
Hey.
still on discussion now?
Yeah. On the agenda.
We can't discuss it.
No.
Right,
Put it on
so
the
I just
agenda.
want to make sure we understand what the topic is, because it seems like we're moving outside of it.
Just
If
put-
this is just to put it on the agenda. Are we voting on that?
Yes.
Vote, okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Okay. Approve of the minutes
I don't
for
think so.
February 13, 2023. Do I hear
So moved.
second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? You, right?
You're up now.
Yeah, I have time. Question, did you say February 13th or March 13th?
Yeah, it's not March yet, it's February 13.
Oh, this one, yeah, I just went out.
Councilman Boris abstained,
Yeah, he wasn't here.
and that's it, right?
Yep.
Just in January.
Motion passes. Okay.
super excited.
Stacy will read the communications.
Okay, we have before us Communication A from the tax collector regarding overpayment refunds for the month of February 2023, which will be filed with tonight's minutes. We have Communication B from Councilman Quagliani regarding a draft ordinance limiting the use of eminent domain in the city of West Haven for a first read, which will be assigned to the Legislative Matters Committee. Councilman, Bruno? I'm sorry. And we have Communication C from Lee Tiernan Corporation Counsel and Rick Spryer, Purchasing Procurement, regarding memorandum to MARB Board concerning lease of a closed and sealed landfill for a solar energy facility being assigned to the Finance Committee, Councilwoman Hosky. And we have before us Communication D from Lee Tiernan Corporation Counsel regarding a new settlement proposal for the city's opioid efforts being assigned to the Finance Committee, Councilwoman Hosky. And we have Communication, I feel like I got something wrong here.
Yes, communication C
Yeah.
is not finance, I don't believe, I think it's public finance.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, Communication C is not the, Finance Committee, it is, Communication C from Lee Tiernan Corporation Counsel and Rick Starr, purchase and procurement regarding memorandum, to MAR Board concerning the lease of a closed and sealed landfill for a solar energy facility being assigned to public lands, and that would be Councilman Donovan. I apologize for that. 1, 2 minutes tonight. Councilman, Communication D from Lee Tiernan Corporation Counsel regarding the new settlement proposal for the city's opioid efforts is being assigned to the Finance Committee, Councilwoman Hosky. And Communication E from David Taylor, Assistant Finance Director, regarding an ordinance appropriating $13,894,100 from the fiscal year 2022-2023 capital plan and authorizing the issuance of $13,894,100 in bonds, plus additional financing costs of the city to meet certain fiscal year 2022-2023 capital budget appropriations and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowing for such purposes, being assigned to the Finance Committee, Councilwoman Hosky. And that concludes the communications for this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Stacy. So,
We have the committee, but that's not,
we have, council as a whole, is the ARPA committee, there, Ken is not coming until the next meeting, which will be March 13th, so we have no updates right now at this time. So we will go to the Finance Committee, to Councilwoman Hosky. Okay.
The time is now 7:30 and your Committee on Finance is in session. Members present are Councilwoman Hamilton, Councilwoman Akbarali, and Councilwoman O'Connor, and Councilman Quagliani, and myself acting as chair. We have before us, Communication D from Lee Tanning, Corporation Counsel regarding the new settlement proposal for the city's opioid efforts. I would like to bring this out favorably.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Okay, great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Outstanding. We also have before us Communication E, the ordinance appropriating $13,894,100 from the fiscal year 22-23 capital plan. I'd like to bring this out for discussion. Thank you. Second, thank you, Councilwoman. Does anyone have discussion before I have discussion? Did you?
I personally don't think that we should do any action on this until we have like a finance person before us to answer questions. Because there are some questionable line items on here.
I concur. Anyone else have any thoughts or discussion about it? No? So Lee, can I ask you a question? See if you might have an answer. So I'm not comfortable moving forward with this because nobody's, with the bond, oh, I'm sorry, do you not know where we are? I apologize. Regarding, Communication E, the ordinance appropriating the 13 million for the fiscal year for capital plan and authorizing the issuance of
Yes,
bonds.
So
Yes.
the idea is you're putting it down for first reading.
Yeah.
You don't have to approve it. If you don't, you screw up the timetable.
We
when
screw
go
it
to-
up?
Whomever, but if the timetable is ruined in terms of Wall Street, you may have to go back and it may get, different interest rates. Interest rates are in flux currently.
Yeah. Well, I don't. So I don't.
Go ahead.
What,
Do you see? I'm trying to mind my words and actions.
Yeah,
I'm
that's why I was gonna jump
Were
in.
you gonna jump? Oh, you go right ahead, because you might just give it a little better squeeze than me.
So Lee, a couple things. So, number one, we just received this. Number two, it wasn't that long ago when we would have the finance director, the bond counsel, and all sorts of individuals to guide us through going to market and what our debt service is gonna be, what additional debt service would come on based on these projects. None of that is here, currently. The list of projects in my mind is inaccurate because we took some of the money. The purpose for us using some ARPA money was to reduce the bonding. It looks like there are duplicate projects on here from what we approved already, for ARPA funding. And I did ask at last meeting, and I'm not quite sure it got filtered through yet because of, whatever reason, but, I did ask for all the open grants, and what the drawdowns left are on those grants. And in my mind, I think there are millions of dollars that we haven't drawn down on grants yet that maybe we could use instead of bonding. So it's very difficult, and I get it, you're the messenger, but for you to come here with a financial instrument asking us to begin the process to bond $14 million, and we don't have one financial expert here in the room to be able to help us. So I'm not in favor of moving this forward at all at this time until we get the people in the room that we could have a conversation with. Thank you.
yeah, I can't help you with how the list came up, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know that.
Whether or not we have other money to eliminate any of these and bond less, obviously a legitimate question. I wish I could answer that, I can't answer.
I'm all done.
Good.
Yeah.
So I just think it's really important that everyone recognize that we can't do our job without a full accounting of what is going on in the city. And I refuse to take blame for if we go back and the interest rates are different. That is not, or not, whatever, what did you call it?
This shouldn't have come on even the way, it should have come on sooner. I'm not trying to blame
I know you're
anybody
not,
for that.
I didn't say you were. I'm just letting everyone know that it is not on us. And if the finance director couldn't be here, then his boss should have been. And I don't understand, I mean, just to highlight, I don't understand how the Kerrigan domestic piping in Washington's, somebody needs to be here to answer this, and, I'm not comfortable moving forward until somebody is in the room that can answer these questions. And to Councilman Quagliani's statement, and I think that we really need to take note that we will not move on any bonding ordinance until we get an accounting of the grants. I don't know why he has to ask 5 times, 3 times. No, I think you might have just added to the 2 times we've talked about it before. I mean, it's an ongoing thing that we've asked about. And we were told that if the grants office got additional support and we gave them somebody, additional staff, they would be able to give us this accounting. Is it Olivia? She is fantastic, but that's what we thought she was doing, and we've been waiting. We need that information. Does anyone else?
I will
have-
request that information.
And so the next, so we need it all together.
Understood.
Yeah. I invite them all to come and give an accounting. Maybe Olivia can come. If she can't come, maybe her boss can, but somebody should answer for the money that they're collecting on the grants.
Understood.
Councilwoman, did you?
Absolutely. No, I agree with the fact that we need to have the appropriate people in front of us in order to answer these questions, because there's already been a huge mess with finances in our city, and we don't want to create more of a mess. And just being handed this paperwork in general and wanting to have us approve it, it's just goes to show the disorganization of the city, and how are we supposed to approve something that we don't have answers for?
So at this time, I think we should take back the second and we just hold it. Wait, did you have the second?
I think I had the so moved.
So
Made it
moved.
first. So, Councilwoman O'Connor had the second and Councilwoman Hamilton had the motion. I'll take it back. So take it back?
Okay, so thank you so much, Lee. You are appreciated. We're gonna hold communication, E. Lee, do you, with the budget review, nobody's here. So the Marv meeting, I think there's not really an update. What about the police pension? I think you might have promised the last time we met that you might have an update this time around?
I didn't get a chance to get an update for you, and I apologize to you and apologize to the head of the police union that I didn't get a chance to do
No,
that. I had to go to a wake and that kind of screwed me up. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Your committee on finance is closed at 7:38.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Actually, 7:42, but who's counting? I know the clocks are wrong. Maybe we could get some batteries one day.
Oh, am I not looking at that right?
No,
It's
they're
off.
just wrong.
Oh, okay.
But it's 7:42.
Oh, it is, sorry.
Thank you.
I was gonna say, I put my glasses on, maybe it might have been different. 7:42, thank you, Stacy.
Okay, we'll go into public lands. Councilman Donovan.
Thank you, Chairman. The time is now 7:42. The Committee on Public Lands is now in session. Members present are Councilman Quagliani, Councilwoman O'Connor, Councilwoman Hamilton, Councilman Bruno, and myself acting as chair. We have before us tonight Communication C from Lee Tiernan Corporation Counsel and Ricky Spryer Purchasing Procurement regarding memorandum to MAR Board concerning lease of a closed and sealed landfill for a solar energy facility. I'd like to entertain a motion to bring this out favorably. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on this? At this time, I'd like, Lee, if you can enlighten us, the entire council.
Yeah, so, if you look even, there's a big board, the old sewer system, our sewer system is, I don't know, the board says the map is 1914, so your sewer system's even older than that. And on that map, it says, disposal area, right? So where the old landfill was a disposal area since before 1914. Basically, the idea is they just dump everything there and eventually would leak into the sound, and that's how garbage worked. Landfill's been closed for quite a while. about 30 years. It's had a cap, so that means it got closed longer than that. The cap shouldn't have trees, shouldn't have ATV riders. It really should be kind of a pristine cap. And the solar folks are going to help us restore that, so that's a good thing, both with money and with presence and with their efforts. You don't have a lot of options with a closed landfill in terms of how to monetize it. You can't, it's really got to stay sealed. You can't really move the mountain. You know, I could explore maybe a zip line or something, but you're pretty much limited to what DEEP says you can do on it. And DEEP says we can put the solar array. And so this will generate a cleaner, better managed landfill, but also generate $35,000 in revenue based on the energy it's going to produce. That's in today's looking at rates. But we hope it's consistent over time. It's a long-term lease. I'm working with the purchasing director. We had some drone photos taken of the landfill. We're going to try to see if we can monetize other aspects of it. There's a section of it that's very visible to 95, 150,000 cars a day. So we're going to see if there's any interest in cell tower on the property and or advertising. And that's probably, we might be able to use some of the land here and there, but we're probably limited after that. So before you now is a long-term arrangement for the solar. Now, how did we get here? You, the council, approved after 7 respondents to an RFP to work with a company called Green Skies. Green Skies has been working with us since you approved that a couple of years ago diligently to try to get this done. They've been very good. I thought we'd be able to lease the landfill. That didn't work out. We had to acquire the landfill, which is fine. DEEP is happy. We're happy. We're going to be able to generate revenue. They anticipate you should start seeing construction this summer, or this spring, now that we're all ready to go. And I'm available for any other questions.
Questions from the, yep. Go ahead.
Hey, I missed something there. You just said something that you thought we could lease it, but aren't we leasing this?
It was a privately owned landfill.
Yeah.
So I thought we could lease it. But then one of the lessors died and the remaining folks couldn't come to an agreement. So I had to foreclose on it.
But we're leasing it to the company to put
We're leasing it to the company
solar.
to do the solar. DEEP prefers that we own it.
All right, so, and then it's for 21 years with options for renewal, 3 5-year options, right?
Correct.
And then could you tell me I see what the primary base rent is. It's based on $26 per megawatt. So how is the city benefiting by this project?
All right, so first, we use the solar consultant that we use for all our projects in order to review this and to give us confidence that it was a good deal. So that's solar consultant. Mr. Teff, he has done that, and he recommends this, and he says it's a good deal. You know, it's based on ongoing agreements. It is not dissimilar to the other agreements other municipalities are entering into for other solar arrangements. You know, you have your parking lot solar arrangements, your school roof solar arrangements, other building solar arrangements. So this is, you know, not dissimilar. If it works the way they think, what they're gonna do is the solar's gonna be on the flattest top part, and depending on how much energy that develops, they might develop some of the side. The side apparently doesn't generate as much electricity as the flat top. So, it is a use that is, other towns are doing the same thing or have done the same thing in old landfills. It's one of the few uses DEEP will allow. I
So
don't know what
what's
else to
the
do.
estimated yearly revenue source, right?
35,000.
35,000 per year, and then what about, do we get a reduced rate on our electrical?
You could, but we have a guaranteed 35,000. If you wanted to have an arrangement where you're gonna buy the electricity, we might enter into that at a later date. We haven't done that. There are other solar arrangements which might be beneficial. Right now, under the current solar programs, there are solar builders and owners that require a municipality like ours. We're considered a municipality that has a diversity of income that is appropriate for certain matching of solar. So I'm working on a current deal, for instance, where we would get $100 worth of power for $90 for, long time. And there's no upfront costs or whatever. That's just to be a partner in that agreement because the state says they have to have partners. And there's other arrangements on the solar. There's most of our, take what the solar people want in terms of use is a 24/7 user. So like your sewer plant, for instance, to a lesser degree, the police station. So if you do a buy arrangement with a 24/7 user, then that's constant, right? And it's guaranteed. There's no diminished time. There's no time on weekends or whatever. We already have a fuel cell down at the sewer plant, so it's hard, and that transmission may not seem like a lot, but it's hard to do it for that purpose. But what you probably see more is to be able to sell it to the neighboring users. You'd be able to offer your residents and businesses cheaper electricity. But for now, you want to guarantee something. So we're guaranteeing the money, and then, Green Skies is confident that they can make a profit as well, obviously, or they wouldn't be involved. And they're coming back to us to try to do even more projects.
And the consultant feels that this is typical for the type and the amount of
Yes.
solar array, for the revenue that's gonna come back to the city. That's pretty typical around the industry.
Yes, and he's recommended that in writing.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else from the committee have any questions?
They have a 35-year lease.
Well, they have, as Councilman Quagliani, they have renewals that could get them up to
Okay.
35 years.
Because I heard the words you say, if it works like they think. What if it doesn't work like they think?
I mean, if you had a lot of eclipses, I don't know what would cause, there's nothing that one can predict at this time based on the world that would cause anything. But obviously, if there was something that would affect their ability to get access to the sun, they can't generate the electricity. If we had an abnormal number of cloudy days, might affect it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Anybody else from the committee have any questions? Yes, Councilman?
You mentioned like a cell tower and advertisement, that's something that we would do? The city would do?
That's something the city's gonna pursue to see if we can monetize that, to see if there are interested parties that the city can make money on.
And when you say like advertisement, you're talking like billboards of the sort?
I'm not gonna limit I'm just gonna send it out to a number of groups, both agencies that just deal in advertising, the billboard people, and different entities that might have an interest in that site. Something could be as simple as welcome to West Haven, home of, and then the business on the hill there, or it could be something more, it's a pretty big hill.
Hollywood?
Yeah, it's a half, it's a half mile, if you go from when you first see it coming from New Haven, it's a half mile, it's 150,000 cars a day, so, we'll have to wait and see whether or not it works. And obviously, it's got to be, there'll be some restrictions, it's got to be tasteful, it wouldn't be every advertiser, but, who knows?
That's cool, thank you.
It's worth a try, no guarantees.
Anyone else from the committee? Before I open it up to the council and as a whole, I have a couple questions, and just to clarify so that the residents also know. So any type of security, any type of snow removal, any type of maintenance, it is on the tenants, it's their responsibility, correct?
Yes, so they're building a solar array with secured fencing.
Yep.
They're gonna build an access road that we're gonna be able to use.
Mhm.
They're gonna remove all the trees. That's gonna be on them. They're gonna, make the, cap, you know, certain improvements. You shouldn't, when you do a cap on a landfill, for instance, you shouldn't have any dips. Dips create water puddling, water can move. You don't want water moving off a landfill, right? So you want a nice, maintained cap, and they're gonna put, you know, a material down that can maintain the cap. So we're getting all the advantage of that. We may secure, you know, we might put some Jersey barriers on the bottom. There might be some flat land that we could utilize for some purpose. Deep would allow additional composting at some of the flatter sites. There's a lot of wet sites too, though, so you gotta, you know, you might not be able to do what you wanna do. You can't just fill in a wet site, you know, Deep probably wouldn't allow you to do that.
I didn't read the whole contract because, one, I'm not a lawyer, and it seems like you need two of them to understand this thing, but, security cameras, when they talk security, just chain link fence, are they talking to security cameras as well? Or
Yeah, they'll
we
have-
we don't know that.
No, I'm sure they'll have solar-powered cameras. They, you know, solar, solar devices have, you know, a value, so they certainly don't want them to walk off the hill.
Right.
And so, you know, they'll be monitoring that.
Good.
Although, you know, there hasn't been, I'm not aware of a wave of theft of solar panels on landfills.
And lastly, the solar itself, the energy that the solar panels gather, what is it going to be used for?
Like, you know, clean, renewable electricity.
Okay. I'll open it up to the whole council as a whole, if anybody has any questions. Councilman
How you
Boris.
doing, Mr. Lieutenant? Question, I have solar panels, and I know when I was sold solar panels, they told me, yeah, you're gonna get all this energy, and your bills are gonna be really low, and you're gonna be paying way less than what you're supposed to. But if the sun doesn't come out, it doesn't work, right? So this says we're getting approximately $35,000, depending on rates. What rates you talking about?
The kilowatt rate.
Okay. So if there is no sun, we don't get that $35,000? What is the minimum? Do they give you like a minimum?
If
that
there is no sun, I think we have a lot of
Well,
other
we're not
problems
gonna, I
with
mean,
respect.
you need a certain amount of sun. Okay, you can have sun, but if the solar panels is not getting that certain amount, you're not gonna get good energy.
Yes. So other communities have solar arrays on landfills. They've
Mhm.
found them economically viable. This company is in the business. We had 7 bidders, so obviously there are other companies that think it's
Mhm.
a viable way to go. So I have to go with I'm not a landfill solar array expert, but obviously they're building them thinking that there's money at the end of the rainbow.
Thank you. All right. I was just wondering, because I know that when I bought it, I thought it was better than what they said. I mean, I like solars, it's just,
Well, right
I'm paying
now, the
ridiculous money
landfill
now.
doesn't generate any revenue.
I know. But I would rather like a definite number. Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Anybody else from the council?
Only question I have is about the length of the lease. Is there any ability to make that less? Just because, things right now in the solar industry are changing, a lot. And so that's a long time to lock in that kind of a rate with one company, in my opinion. But I just am curious about what the ability is to come in. Because if you found something better, you're locked in now, and you can't.
Correct. So you could turn them down, but then I don't know to what end. The solar panels themselves generally will have a usable life between 20 and 30 years anyway.
Mhm.
So whether they want to reinvest after 20 or 30 years is an open question. It'll depend on the marketplace.
Well, that's them. But
Yeah.
if there's another company that has a better deal,
There,
you know what I'm saying? You're boxing yourself out of that.
there is no company
opportunity.
that has a better deal. We've already been down that road. We've negotiated 7 bidders.
Okay.
We had a consultant, so this isn't Lee Tiernan talking. This is the best deal we could
Thank you
get.
for that. No, just kidding.
But, could we get a better deal in year 23? I don't know. I mean,
Okay, thank you.
I hope I'm still around, but probably not here at the podium.
All set, Councilwoman?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
And thank you earlier for the
Lee, thank you.
I just want to make a comment, and then that's this. It's a capped dump site. Okay, there's trees growing out of it that shouldn't be happening. So whatever revenue that generates for the city is a good thing, and it's a lot more than what we're getting now. It's just a capped dump site. So that's been capped for years and years. That looks like total disarray. So whatever you could get generated from that would be great. Thank you. Nothing else.
Anyone else on the council?
Hey Lee, just thinking outside the box here, if I'm understanding this correctly, are they capping it at 35,000? Because I'm thinking back here, and I'm just, like I said, thinking out of the box. If they're able to squeeze in more panels than originally planned, that benefits them, and they're making more, and we're capped at 35. Are we capped at 35, or is there potential for more? That's my question.
We're capped at the kilowatt rate. That's the kilowatt rate they're guaranteeing, but the cap is on the bottom, not the top. Follow? So it doesn't go below that. It can go above that.
That's
Doesn't go
what I
below
want to hear.
Now, there's another party involved, Deep. So when you talk about them expanding sort of on their own or whatever, they're not allowed, their project has to be approved every.
Right, they got to
separate-
go through the process again to do more.
And you see the maps, they're tied to what that map says right down to where the road is.
Okay.
I mean, we may change the road. I'm gonna work with, those radio towers out there. There's a little bridge. It's owned by Clear Channel. That's a radio group. You may remember Rush Limbaugh, he was represented by Clear Channel. Anyway, if they agree to improve, there's a little footbridge out there. That could be the access. But right now, the planned access is on the Spring Street side near the West River and up the hill.
I just want to make sure, because I know in past deals, and I mean, we're going back when I was a kid, but deals have been done where we rush to it, we don't cover the details, and then someone makes more off of us than originally anticipated, so.
No, one of the first things I did was, when we started building the high school, we were gonna have a solar component. I locked in this solar consultant to do all the other solar consulting, which he's done for the police station here, the parking lot solar, and there's a lot of other solar projects that have come from. That other deal that I'm talking to you about, where we get the $100 of electricity for $90, that's a deal he's brought to us as well. So.
Thank you, Chairman, that's all I have.
But they may expand if it goes well. The side of the hill isn't as profitable, but if the kilowatt hour is high enough, they may expand and ask if they can build on the side in a short time.
Anyone else from the council have any questions? All right. Seeing none, thank you, Lee. Seeing none, I'm gonna go back to the committee. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Committee on Public Lands is now closed at 8:02.
Thank you, Councilman Donovan. And we'll take it under legislative matter, Councilman Bruno.
Time is 8:02. Committee on Legislative Matters is in session. Members present: Councilwoman O'Connor, Councilman Galliano, Councilman Boras, Councilwoman Acabelli, myself acting as chair. We have before us tonight Communication B from Councilman Quagliani regarding a draft ordinance limiting the use of eminent domain in the city of West Haven for the first read. We have Communication M from February 13, 2023, agenda from Mayor Nancy R. Rossi regarding Code of Ethics ordinance for a first read. And we have before us Communication H from January 23rd from Councilwoman Garthwaite regarding SPBS, proposed hunting and trapping ordinance. Communication B. I'd like to make a motion to bring this out favorably.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, I'm gonna move on to the other committee now. We're gonna close that one out.
Oh, okay, Communication M. From February 13th, agenda from Mazzarella Rossi regarding Code of Ethics ordinance for a first read. I'd like to bring the motion out favorably. Do I hear a motion?
Second.
For discussion, I'd like to bring up Mr. Vargo to explain what this is, please.
Good evening, Chris Vargo Jr., 31 Hilltop Lane, West Haven. I understand that tonight you're going to be reading an abbreviated version. I don't blame you, it's 20-some odd pages, so
Correct.
That's a long read. Just a little background of how we got to where we are. I know that at least one or two of you had asked Attorney Tiernan to ask the board for either a red line or a highlight of what the changes are. And with respect, I can't do that for you. This is not a change. This is basically a rewrite. We're starting from scratch. If you take a look at what the current Code of Ethics is, it's found in Chapter 17 of the Charter. It is 4 sections, and essentially there's 5 provisions of how elected officials, appointed officials, and city employees are to conduct themselves. You can't represent anybody but the city in front of a city board or committee. You can't accept or solicit additional compensation for doing your job. You can't use or disclose any information you get in the course of doing your job to any third party. And you need to recuse yourselves if you have a financial conflict of interest. And you can't have any business interest that's incompatible with what your job is as a city employee or official. What we have done, the mayor had asked us back in May of last year to take a look at the code and see what changes we wanted to make. And we realized that we had basically 3 options. We could either draft a document that's essentially an executive order that the mayor could sign and enact. We did not want to do that because we did not want this code to be changed willy-nilly from administration to administration. We could revise the charter, but we know how in love this city is with charter revision, and we did not want to go down that road. So we looked at what other municipalities did, and we realized that an ordinance is probably the best bet. If you take a look at the ordinance that we have prepared for you, it goes from 5 sections to 13 sections on conduct. If you break it down even further to the subparts, there's 46, and it goes in a wide array of behaviors, recusals, what you can and cannot do as elected and appointed officials and employees. It also offers a full explanation of what the Board of Ethics is permitted to do, what it's required to do, and how we're going to do it. And it's all in line with state law, unlike the charter where it just gives a very, very brief synopsis. It details the examples of actions that can be taken if the board does deem an action to be in violation of the code. It tells you what we're allowed to do, what recommendations we can make, what financial penalties the city can impose on people. It codifies a requirement to have all elected, appointed officials and employees to fill out disclosure forms within so many days of hire or appointment. And it also requires you all to update them within so many days of there being a material change to that form. It also details where those forms are going to be stored, how to access them, stuff like that. It details the complaint process, which I don't think is very well explained to the public. So it details how a complaint is going to be drafted, what we will do with it, the time frame, and we are also preparing a citizen's guide. Assuming that this gets approved, we're preparing a citizen's guide for the website and a draft complaint form so that anybody could just sign on to the city's website and have that information in very easily to understand language. And we just feel that this is a much more transparent document on what the board is supposed to do, how we're going to do it, and the standards that everybody that's employed or appointed or elected to represent the city needs to conduct themselves.
Chris, I gotta tell you, like, I know you guys worked really hard on this. It's an outstanding job.
Thank you.
And what was in place prior to all this? What was in place prior to all this work you did?
I apologize, what?
What was in place prior to all this that you did?
The only thing that was in place is if you open up your charter It's chapter 17, which I have right here, and it's 4 sections, and it's about a page and a half worth of text. And I also wanted to just let everybody know that we took probably 15 different codes of ethics from around the state, compared them, and pulled together what we felt would fit best given West Haven's culture, and what we would expect from everybody. It has been reviewed by Corporation Counsel. It has been reviewed by the State Ethics Commission. The executive director of the State Ethics Commission reached out, has reviewed it, gave some feedback. We took the majority of his comments and put it in here. The one that we did not take was he wanted to change who can appoint folks to the Board of Ethics, take it from just the mayor to the mayor and some members of the city council. We decided against that because it would require a charter revision that, again, we did not want to go down that road. And we were concerned that the more individuals that could just throw names into a hat, politics be that it may, it would create a lot of difficulty and stonewall the process. There's already a check and balance. You all have to approve our appointments and reappointments. Thank you for reappointing me, by the way. But you all have to do that anyway, so there's already that check and balance there.
Again, Chris, thank you, and great job.
Thank you.
Anybody within the committee have any questions first?
I just want to thank you, Chris. Tremendous job on that. A lot of work there. It was a long read, believe me.
We did multiple times.
Yeah, I'm sure that you made sure that.
Lots of water.
But yeah, great job, because he's my speechwriter, by the way, so, good man.
Thank you.
And, yes, you're welcome for reappointment. I would do that any day of the week, so.
Thank you.
I just wanted to thank you on a great job that you and your committee did on this. A lot of people could live by these ethics, so, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch. Anyone else? Colleen?
I just wanted to echo my colleagues. You and your committee did a wonderful job on this. I too read the whole thing, and it took me a long time. But I think in lieu of what's been going on, I think it's one piece of work that everyone in the city should read. And we need to follow it.
Thank you, Colleen. Anyone else?
Just want to say thank you. Good job.
Thank you.
Mr. Quagliani?
Hey, Chris, so again, yeah, I sat in a couple of your meetings. I know how hard, you all worked to put this together, so I think, what we had before in the charter didn't do justice to what we should be doing, so this is a wonderful document for checks and balances. So, how about implementation? So I know you said you're gonna have a user guide for citizens, but this is gonna be a big change for employees, officials. What's your thought about rollout and training once this thing gets approved?
There is a provision on here that everybody who is an elected official, appointed official, or employee needs to receive a copy of this within a certain amount of days. And once it's passed, we will work with Corporation Counsel, Personnel Department, and whomever else we need to make sure that that is done. And it's going to be on those folks to read it, and we'll provide contact information that if they have any questions or concerns, certainly they can reach out to us. And then we will put together something, we're in the process of putting together that citizens guide to be published on the website that hopefully makes it a little bit more user-friendly for the residents. So we understand that this is going to take a little bit of time to roll out and a little bit of time for people to get used to. And the board will be, ready and able to help out Corporation Counsel and personnel however we need to.
And so, what's it, 10-2, applicability? It says the code shall apply to all current officials and employees, whether elected or appointed, paid or unpaid, full-time or part-time, as well as former officials and/or employees when specifically stated in this code. So what's the committee's thinking there? Because while this is a valuable tool, I can see how it could be misused.
I actually had a constituent call me with that exact question. The code is a looking forward document, so there is no provision that this applies retroactively to anything that happened.
Except one. So for instance, as it applies to corporation counsel or attorneys, we can't represent anybody for the year after we're employed. That's only for a year, but you could see how that might make sense, right?
Yes.
I don't think there are a lot of provisions that I saw that apply to what you said, but that provision does, so you couldn't leave it out.
Right, well, it says as stated in the code, but then I couldn't really find something in the code that.
I can only think of that, what I just described. I don't know if you can think of
The code also has a look-back period that you can go back a year or 2 years if somebody were to leave their employment. So for example, if you had somebody in public works, and what this is really supposed to say is, if you have somebody in public works that possibly committed a violation a year ago and he was let go today, that it is possible for the board to look at that infraction, decide that there was an ethical violation, and then make a recommendation to the mayor. It's basically like the statute of limitations if you were to sue somebody. So that's what that section's designed for.
But again, so that might apply, you're trying to get a contract, trying to get reemployment.
Which I think makes sense. I was just concerned that there's a potential, based on how I
Well-
read that there could be some issues.
Well, even what I just said, there is potential, but then again, if you don't do it,
Yep.
and somebody got away with something and you didn't do a look back, and the look back is not forever.
Right, there is a cap on how far back you can look back, and I can tell you that my board specifically, this is not a looking back document that if you enact this year, then we're gonna start scouring or we're gonna just get an influx of complaints. That's something that happened 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. We can't hold somebody accountable to something that didn't exist, and that's the way that we're looking at it. So this is a looking forward document.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Oski?
Hi. Thank you so much. I appreciate all the work you did. I think you were definitely the right man for the job, and as your committee as well, I'm really excited because I know Silvana Apicelli is going to be on the committee, so I think it's really going to be what it needs to be. I do have a couple of questions. In the past, there's been a struggle on my part on committee members on the ethics committee. Do you think the appointment of the people on your committee should be any different than, say, the appointment of people that we put on Parks and Rec? In my opinion, I think like the ethics committee, like your appointment should be that. Only because if you delve in all these other little things, how do you stay impartial? Like how do you, and I'm not questioning you, I'm just saying you as an example. So does that speak to that at all in here?
Is your question that if you're on ethics, you
The
can't be on
ethics
something
committee,
else?
like how, right, did you guys think about that? Like think about if we're on, like the ethics committee needs to kind of be the ethics committee. You shouldn't be, you know, maybe the Allentown Fire Commissioner because you have that relationship with the city there. And I don't know, and I didn't read it, and I apologize. I tried to skip through it. I just know that, like you were saying, sometimes things are, or maybe you weren't saying it, somebody else was, things are a little political, and if you are on the ethics committee, should you be able to run for office in the city, and should it then be a choice? Because I know right now, there are committees in the city where elected officials are on those committees, and it gets a little... Should there just be one or the other? And did
So,
you guys think about that
If
at
you take a
all?
look at the document, it's page 10, section, or I'm sorry, it's actually page 11, but section X5 is the Board of Ethics. Subsection
Page-
C,
Did you say page 10?
it starts on page 10, but the provisions I'm going to reference is actually page 11.
Oh, okay, thank
Says
you.
all boards need to be electors of the city, no more than 3 can be of the same political party. No member of the board may be or have been within 1 year of appointment an official of the city, with the exception of being a member of a political town committee. However, no board member may hold an executive office on the committee, so they can't be a chairperson or treasurer or whatever. So that section means that you can't be an official in another capacity when you're appointed or 1 year before, except for being on town committee.
So at that point, when that happens, can they not be appointed? Would that stop the appointment? Like, say I am the treasurer of the DTC. Can I not be appointed, or do I have the opportunity to get appointed and then I would have to resign in that capacity?
Because subpart 3 says within 1 year, you wouldn't be able to be appointed.
You should.
And I think, Councilman Donovan, you were on the board when you were elected councilman, and
That's correct, I was on the board, and I resigned as soon as I became council.
Right.
That was gonna be
Yeah,
a question I have
I'm
for
not
you.
talking, okay, so you're saying within the city, so if I was on the Park and Rec, if I wanted to be on the Ethics Committee, I could not have been on the Park and Rec Committee for a year prior?
Yes.
Okay, so you're not referring to a political parties committee?
No, we
Okay.
put in a political party committee, Republican or the Democratic
That's
Town
what she
Committee.
thinks you're saying, but okay.
No. So we were actually very careful, and I apologize if that's not, we were actually very careful of how we worded that, because it could be confusing. The Democratic and the Republican town committees are not municipal committees.
That was her
yeah.
concern, she was whispering to me.
Well-
Right here, though, it says right here.
No, it's-
Political,
You can't be on the board of those committees. So you can't be the chairman, vice chairman, secretary, treasurer, or assistant treasurer.
for the Republican or the Democratic?
Town committee. So I'm a member of the Democratic Town Committee
Correct.
as now. So I am not in violation of this because I do not have an
So
executive
that
seat.
is my question. So I am the treasurer of the independent parties town committee.
Mhm.
Can I be appointed and then resign, or I cannot even be on?
No, because there's a 1 year look back period.
Okay, so I have another question. Is there any thought in the ethics, is that, because you're governing, and I apologize, I'm not well versed in this, that the code of ethics that people are supposed to hold, is there anything in regards to, say, attendance of these committees in the city? So I'm on the, give me a committee. CDAC, CD, huh?
Planning and zoning.
Planning and zoning, but I am not in attendance, 50% of the time. Is there anything like that in here to hold people, so we're holding people accountable for their behavior, so you have people that are on boards and commissions that are not attending the board meetings. Can they be removed, or does that not speak to it?
It doesn't speak to it because that would typically be a function of that body. If that they would have their own bylaws or their own rules.
Yeah,
If they
attendance
don't, they
isn't
should.
on any of them.
If they don't, they should.
Can that, stop.
No, I mean, there's a procedure, if we don't follow it, that we don't follow it, but there is a procedure to remove people, and one of those areas could be attendance. You could have somebody removed. They have due process rights if you try to remove them during their term.
So, really? So
Yeah.
you have committee members that don't regularly attend their committee assignments, and you have attendants that say they're not there, so at a certain point, that committee chair can then remove the person that was?
Not the chair, but the mayor appointed them, the mayor could remove them and say, I'm removing you for attendance reasons. And then you'd have a due process right here, and you could say, I know I did attend, or, I don't know.
Okay.
Whatever, I had a medical reason, you'd have a due process right there to do that.
No, I understand. I'm just curious. And so, does this speak at all to elected, did I ask that? So I apologize, because I might be, that elected officials and how many different committees or things that they can hold? Like, Councilwoman Bridget Hosky, can I be on planning and zoning, or how many, because I know we have that people are on these different committees. Does the ethics weigh in on their thoughts on that?
Only to the extent that if you are acting in the capacity of a specific board or committee, you must recuse yourself if you have a conflict in the context of that body. So we're not limiting that you can only be on 2 or 3, or you can only be on one from column A, one from column B. We don't go that far.
Okay.
But that if you have a conflict, if you are on Committee A, but then you have Planning and Zoning, and then you have a conflict on a discussion item that you need to recuse yourself.
There's also a waiver provision. This is about, if nothing else, about transparency as well. So if there was something that the overwhelming majority of residents wanted to do, and for some reason something in here, as long as the person brought it up, it's been talked about, and whatever, and a waiver is a waiver could be granted in certain circumstances.
So this is going forward, so you can't, so I'm just asking again, because this is what I do. So this, when we vote on this and implement it, this is going forward, so right now, you are the independent, party's vice chair. That does not mean you need to resign, because this wasn't enacted until after. So it would have to be the next time you're up for office that you would not be that person. You couldn't be that vice president of the independent town committee person.
Yes.
I don't want to overrule him.
Yes, yes.
But I would agree with that interpretation.
Okay.
I'm just soothing her soul right now.
Thank you, Ms. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, were you wondering if I was done?
Yes.
Sure, for now.
No, go ahead.
Well, I just want to get clarity on the things that this says, that I know other things are going on, and I need people to understand that it's starting at the time, and we are not going back and removing people from the ethics board.
Understood.
Thank
Chairman,
you,
go ahead, sir.
I appreciate all your work,
Thank you.
Mr. Becker.
Thank you.
Excellent job for your committee. Really good, and it's long overdue. Because when I seen it in the charter, there's only 4 paragraphs on ethics, and this town really needs some ethics on what goes on around here. So I'm 100% for this.
Thank you.
And you guys did an excellent job breaking it all down and thinking of every section of this, the way this city is run. And I appreciate your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank
You all set, Mr. Chairman?
Thank you.
So the question I guess I have is that as opposed to going through the city charter, you chose to make this an ordinance.
Mhm.
Who owns the ordinance? Is that the city council, or is that you guys? Because if somebody wanted to make an adjustment to this, how does that work?
You all have the authority to establish ordinances and approve them and make changes. I would hope that it would be in consultation with any future Board of Ethics, and you wouldn't do it unilaterally. At least a future board would be able to weigh in on it, because that's their job, but ultimately, the authority to change ordinances is yours.
That's what I guess I'm wondering, because normally that would sit with you. If you had gone through the city charter, that process would still, it would be tighter, and people would have less ability to kind of go in and change.
Well, yes and no, because I'm sure you understand that a city charter revision goes out to a referendum, so it's not, it still would not be our decision.
Well, I get
It
it.
would be ours, and then it would go to you all to put out for a referendum.
Yeah, and I'm saying, the point that I'm making is it would be a little bit more difficult to make the change.
Correct.
That's the
And
point.
we had a balance, there's, like I said, there's 3 ways. Either just an executive document that may or may not be enforceable, that could be changed willy-nilly at the stroke of a pen from any mayor, which we did not think was appropriate. City charter was sort of the other end of that coin, and an ordinance was as close to the middle as we could, where you can't just change it willy-nilly, but it's more easily changeable than a charter revision.
Thank you.
You all set, Ms. Tucker?
Yes.
Can I piggyback off of Dr. Tucker? Councilwoman Dr. Tucker? Lee, couldn't we, based on what Councilwoman Tucker is saying, make that part of the ordinance, that prior to the city council voting to change this ordinance, it needs the approval of the Board of Ethics before coming before us? Or, I'm not really sure how the wording would go, and Councilman Quagliani didn't want to help me with it, so I'm guessing
you
right
couldn't-
now.
You couldn't go, you're the legislative body, so you speak for, you're elected, right? So the idea is that the people have empowered you, but also instructed you, you're also in communication with them. See, you couldn't have an ethics committee that had veto authority over you, the elected officials. But you could have mandatory communication, that would be fine. Like, you couldn't do it unless you sent a notification. Well, yeah, but we could add. So in chapter X9, there's amendment, you could add, the code of ethics may be amended only by ordinance passed by a majority of the city council after written notice to the board, something like that. That would be fine. But I don't.
Oh, okay. I understand what you're
Yeah, and
saying.
the Board of Ethics, don't forget, it's appointed by the mayor, so you're really, in a way, you would be giving the mayor more authority than your charter and normal municipal government is trying to get.
Oh, okay. We'll pull it back then. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Oskey, you all
I'm
set?
talking, I'm sorry.
Councilman Donovan?
Thank you, Chairman.
Stop talking.
First of all, how you doing, Chris?
I'm good, thank you.
There is not a group by far put together that I think could have done a better job. I mean, I'm sure maybe one or two others, but fantastic job. I'm sure the meetings were long. Not sure if you had bacon there at the thing. but
We've had pizza.
That's an inside joke. Getting back to, so you're on the Ethics Committee. You decide to run for City Council this November. Now, if I'm reading this right, you cannot run for City Council?
No, I could not hold dual offices, and I
Not
would.
that you can hold dual, but you'll stay on the committee until you become the council, until you're elected, and then you get off the, correct?
Right, I think that's similar to what you did. and I
Exactly, but
agree.
I was reading it differently, and I'm not as apt or smart as the others, so I just wanted to clarify. So you could still be on that committee, even though you're running, and stay on the committee until you're elected, and then you resign at that day,
Right.
correct? Or the next day, whatever it is, right? Because I was just, it just seemed like it was like you can't be on a political office or hold any kind of official office within a year of you being on the committee, unless I read that wrong.
Paragraph 3 says, no member of the board may or have been within 1 year of appointment to the board an official of the city, with the exception of being a member of a political town committee. So so it speaks to my ability to be a member of the Board of Ethics, not on something else.
So you could run for city council
Right.
and then resign once you get elected,
hmm
and you could stay on if you're not elected.
Right.
Okay, I just wanted to, I was just a little confused with it. Just say, to me, it seemed like you couldn't run, you'd have to resign a year before you were thinking of running for an office.
Well, you're not, at that point.
Didn't seem fair.
At the point of running, you are not an elected official at that point. You're an elected official after you're elected.
Correct. All right, thank you.
All
Again,
set,
great job.
Councilman Donovan?
I am all set, thank you.
Councilwoman Gartwith, go ahead.
Hi.
I'm just curious, you mentioned you had modeled the code of ethics after several different cities. Could you tell me a few of the cities? I'm just curious which.
Milford, North Haven, Hamden, Middletown, Cromwell, Hartford,
Okay,
to name a few.
okay, just curious.
Yeah, we did not limit ourselves to, Fairfield County, New Haven County. We did not do all 100 and some odd towns. That would have been very difficult, but we did do probably 15 or 20 that we pulled down, and we found one, I think it was North Haven, that structurally the framework was appealing, and that's what we used. And then we reviewed what it had, took out, modified what we didn't feel would work here, and then looked at the other ones and said, okay, we should add this section, we should remove that section, we should change this or that.
Okay, great. Well, I think it's a lot of work, and I thank you and the rest of the committee for it.
Thank you.
All set. Councilwoman Tucker?
That's the 1 year wait. If a council person is on the council and then wants to go on to at the Board of Ethics, we have to wait a year?
Yes.
So in the reverse, it doesn't work the same way.
I'm sorry?
It doesn't work the same way in the reverse.
That if you're on the Board of Ethics, you have to wait a year to be on council?
Right, because you're saying you can be on that, you could be elected, and then you just step off the Board of Ethics and take your seat as an elected official, but the other way, you have to wait a year.
if you want to be on the Board of Ethics, you have to wait a year. If you want to be on a different body, you do not have to wait a year, you just can't be on ethics. Is that what you asked? Thank you.
All set, Councilwoman?
Yes, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
Mitch?
So I wanna know, so it's saying when you said on the executive board of the town committees, what about the district? Like, what if, like, they have district chairs or state chairs, and I know it's just far-fetched,
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, we did not, consider those as
No, and that's
on the
fine.
board, only because they're not the executive body, they represent the 5 other, town committee members before the whole body. We didn't consider them to be part of that.
It was just a question, somebody messaged me, so I thought I would ask, just to make sure. Thank you so much, I'm all set.
Thank you. Councilman Mitch?
Thank you, Chairman. So, this is a resolution. And we're gonna have everybody, the employees read it, is that my understanding?
That's the design.
So how, if I'm an employee, how are you gonna hold me accountable to that resolution?
We're gonna ask the personnel department to have employees and elected and appointed officials sign a document that says that I've received and read it.
Okay, cause we do that at my job, when I hire somebody, there's
The handbook.
The handbook, correct. So
Similar idea.
This would be the handbook of ethics.
I'm assuming that the city has a handbook, but yes, it's similar idea.
I would bet they don't.
Maybe not, I don't know.
That's just my personal opinion, I've been here a long time,
Maybe.
so. I would like to think they have a handbook, but I'll bet if you go ask HR, they probably
Yeah,
can facilitate
It's
one.
it's the same idea that we're,
Okay, that's
that we would
okay.
ask personnel to monitor that and have everybody sign the document and maintain those records.
Even though it's a resolution.
Yes, yeah, and that's, I think that's actually in here, that
Okay.
they're
I
gonna
just
sign
wa-
off on
I
it.
just wanted to make sure that somebody was gonna sign it, because they could say, I never read it.
Right.
They'd probably sign it without reading it anyway.
Also keep in mind that there's a provision that just, if somebody that has been accused of committing an ethical violation, a defense, it's actually in here, a defense is not that, I didn't read it, I didn't get it.
Well,
They're-
that's like
they're still
saying I
bound to it.
wasn't speeding, Mr. Officer.
Right, or I didn't read the law and therefore it
Right.
doesn't apply to me. It doesn't, ignorance is not an excuse.
Correct.
And that's in here.
I just wanted to make sure how you were gonna hold somebody accountable, because that's all, we need accountability is what we really need.
Right.
So, and it's a great document, again, I already thanked you once, I'll thank you again.
Thank
And
you.
again, but I just wanted to make sure, so, when somebody read it, there would be some kind of signed document saying that they did read it.
Yeah, that is our intention in working with Corporation Council personnel. I mean, we don't have my board does not have a budget. We don't have personnel. Attorney Terrence's been very gracious in lending me his paralegal every so often for very small things. We have been in talks of how to make our ability to do our job a little bit easier by having a modest budget within, some other budget or whatever, so that we could, in fact, do this. Otherwise, we're relying on personnel to do it, and we're volunteers. We can only do so much.
Because it's gonna be a shock to a lot of people to have to sign that. Culture shock. We need it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Mr. Quagliani? Go ahead, Mr. Quagliani.
So Chris or Lee? So operationally, now, from what I recall, the charter always supersedes anything else. So if we put this 22-plus page ordinance, if we implement it, can somebody say, well, that's all well and good, but the charter supersedes that document, and I only have to abide by the 5 things that are identified in the charter?
If you look at X2B, it's called a savings clause, and that means that if something legally supersedes this, then everything else in here will still govern if one portion supersedes. But yes, the charter supersedes this, state law supersedes the charter, and so on.
Moreover, if we do this like the state does it or like the others do it, you're hired, you're supposed to read it, you have the opportunity to read it, you're gonna sign it, you read it, it becomes a condition of employment. So we're covered.
It really would be good, though, someday to, like, I know it's a dirty word, but we really should think about a charter revision to clean up a lot of this stuff.
You are preaching to the already converted.
Amen.
Thank you.
It's the pronouns for me.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Vargo?
The he and the he.
Mr. Vargo, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We really appreciate you coming. Great job.
Thank you.
Please tell your committee thank you.
I will, thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
You too, thank you.
It's snowing. Okay, it's snowing, everybody.
It's gonna make us move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. All right, now, we have, communication H from January 23rd, 2023, from Councilwoman Garthwaite regarding SPBC proposed hunting and trapping ordinance. I know that we're waiting for some more information from Deep on that. And we're waiting for a response from Deep. Ms. Garthwaite, do you want to say anything on that, Councilwoman Garthwaite?
I'm waiting patiently.
I'm inquiring on it for you on regular basis, and I'm just waiting for a response from Deep so we could figure out. So we're gonna hold that, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So, let's see. Time is 8:40. Committee on Legislative Matters is closed.
Thank you, Councilman Bruno. Any unfinished business? All right, committee reports. We're gonna start with the clerk reading the communication A into the record.
Okay, we have communication A from the tax collector regarding overpayment refunds for the month of February 2023, which will be filed with tonight's minutes.
Thank you,
Mr.
Stacy.
Chair.
Thank you very much. And now we will go back into finance committees. Councilman Hosky, please.
Thank you, Chairman. To the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Finance, to whom was referred the matter of the 2022 Emergency Management Department Overdose Program, reports that the committee met on the 27th day of February 2023 to consider said matter. It is unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolved. Whereas the city is the recipient of certain opioid legal settlement funds, hereinafter referred to as opioid funds, whereas the mayor has submitted to the council a spending plan for the expenditure of the 2022 allotment opioid funds, whereas the city council has fiscal responsibility for the appropriation of the funds under section 4 of the city charter entitled supplemental appropriation, whereas the mayor and her administration have executive duties for administering said funds, including but not limited to the purchasing requirements of Chapter 42 of the Code of the City of West Haven attached hereto for reference. Whereas this resolution is intended to supersede and replace any previous resolutions made on the same subject. Resolved that the City Council hereby agrees to allow the mayor, Nancy R. Rossi, to accept and participate in the settlement of the new opioid settlement. Claim this new opioid settlements pursuant to the settlement participation agreement attached hereto. 2022 Emergency Management Department Overdose Response Program, that all project surplus be returned to the opioid fund for further action by the city council, that the council will reserve the funds for future funding. Further resolved, Nancy R. Rossi, as the mayor of the city of West Haven, is authorized and directed to execute and deliver any and all documents related to this resolution on behalf of the city of West Haven, and to do and perform all acts and things which she deems to be necessary or appropriate to carry out the terms of such documents, including but not limited to executing and delivering all agreements and documents contemplated by such documents. Yeah, that's it. My word.
Councilman Hosky brought forward to approve communication D Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously.
And we're holding communication E, and that's all we have for finance.
Thank you. Councilwoman? Now we'll go to Public Lands, Councilman Donovan.
Thank you, Chairman. To the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Public Lands, to whom was referred the matter of solar power and services agreement, reports that the committee met on the 27th day of February 2023 to consider said matter. It is the unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolved, the City Council of the City of West Haven hereby approves the solar power and services agreement at 2 and 8 Spring Street and 75 Front Avenue rear, whereas the City of West Haven desires to purchase solar-generated electricity for certain public buildings, whereas the City of West Haven conducted a competitive public bidding process for the installation of solar equipment, whereas Green Skies Solar was the winning bidder of this process, whereas Green Skies Solar was successfully secured, has successfully secured utility company approval, rebates, and tariff agreements for these projects, whereas the City Council of the City of West Haven is required to approve all contracts longer than 3 years in duration per section 42-15 of the Code of the City of West Haven. Whereas the mayor and her administration have executive duties for administering contractual relationships. Resolved that the City Council of the City of West Haven hereby approves the execution of contracts between the City of West Haven and Green Skies Solar for the following project address: 2 and 8 Spring Street and 75 Front Avenue rear. Further resolved that Nancy R. Rossi, as the mayor of City of West Haven, is authorized to direct, to execute, and deliver any and all documents related to this resolution on behalf of the City of West Haven, and to do and perform all acts and things which she deems to be necessary or appropriate to carry out the terms of such documents, including but not limited to executing and delivering all agreements and documents contemplated by such documents.
Councilman Donovan brought forward to approve communication C. Do I hear a second?
Second.
You?
Mr. Chair,
Any discussion?
this will be going to the MARB, so if anyone feels they have a conflict, they have some business with Green Skies or anything like that, I would ask you recuse yourself, because I have to let the MARB know that there were no conflicts when we approved the agreement. Yes.
My nephew works there. So
At Green Skies?
I will recuse
So-
myself. He's not
Yeah.
on the board or anything. He's just a very small wheel there.
So he's an employee.
He's an
So
employee.
you've disclosed it. Very good.
Should I not vote on this?
No, but you should disclose it, so that's perfect. And UI does do the connection. I don't know who else we do the connection with. They kind of sole source it, so I don't view that as a conflict. We don't have a choice.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? One? Abstain.
I abstained.
She abstained. Motion passes by majority. That's it for you, Councilman?
I'm sorry, yes, I'm done.
Okay, now we're going to legislative matters with Councilman Bruno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Communication B from Councilman Quagliani regarding a draft ordinance limiting the use of eminent domain in the city of West Haven for a first read. Mr. Chairman, could we schedule a public hearing on that on 3/13 at 6:50 PM?
Yes.
Okay. Communication M, February 13th, agenda from Mayor R. Ross regarding Code of Ethics ordinance for a first read. Can we schedule a public hearing on that on 3/13 at 6:55?
Yes, we can.
Okay, and can we read this into the?
You gotta read it.
We'll read it now?
Yeah. Which one you reading first?
I'll read the communication B first.
Okay.
Communication from Council at Large Ronald Quagliani regarding a draft ordinance limiting the use of eminent domain in the city of West Haven. New West Haven Code. Within the territorial limits of city of West Haven, no owner-occupied residential real estate property consisting of 4 or fewer dwelling units may be acquired by eminent domain for economic development purposes pursuant to General Statutes 8-128 to 8-133, inclusive if the resulting project will be privately owned or controlled. Nothing contained herein shall be construed to limit the use of eminent domain powers for public purposes, including but not limited to construction of sewers, highways, sidewalks, rights-of-way, flood, shore, and erosion control purposes, public buildings, or for any other transaction wherein the property rights acquired will be held or controlled by the city of West Haven. This section shall not conflict with any subsequently enacted state law on this subject matter.
Thank you, Mr. Gagliano. We'll read in the draft summary.
Now I'm going to read the
Want me to
draft.
take that, Mitch? You got that?
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, sir.
Declaration of policy. A, public service is a public trust, and the trust of the public is essential for government to function effectively. Those who are elected, appointed, hired, or volunteer as representatives accept a public trust. The public has a right to expect that every official and employee, whether appointed, elected, paid, unpaid, will behave in a manner that will tend to preserve public confidence and foster respect for the government the official or employee represents. Therefore, every official and employee is expected to treat all citizens in an impartial, honest, responsible, open, and courteous manner at all times. B, public trust also requires that the government be conducted in an open manner when appropriate so that the official actions of public servants may be subject to public scrutiny and so the members of the public may have access to the information upon which decisions and policies affecting them are made. However, public trust also requires that the government be conducted in a manner which respects the rights of its constituents to privacy and confidentiality. Public trust also requires that acts which are contrary to the public interest be defined and prohibited, that there an orderly procedure for raising and addressing ethical questions, that ethical behavior be encouraged, and that unethical behavior be discouraged and suitably disciplined through a process that is fair and equitable. C, officials and employees shall make government policies and decisions following proper procedure through the proper channels of government. Policies and decisions shall be made free from coercion or improper influence. And all officials and employees shall use their office or employment in the best interests of the city, its residents, its taxpayers, rather than for personal interest, and avoid both actual potential conflicts between their individual self-interest and the public interest. D, city employees, elected officials, and appointed board and commission members are expected to adhere to high ethical standards in the performance of their duties as official employees. Officials and employees are expected to treat everyone, other officials and other employees, taxpayers, residents, and the general public as a whole with the utmost dignity and respect. However, by accepting the duties and obligations of public service, officials and employees, particularly those who volunteer their time and talents to help make West Haven a better city, do not relinquish their right to be treated with the same dignity and respect as others. E, the principal policy which follows the foundation of this chapter is to encourage internal commitment by establishing and maintaining a work environment which supports integrity. Such an environment includes public servants who, 1, recognize with gratitude that primary reason to hold a public position is to serve the public. 2, recognize the pride that they hold their public position because their public trusts them. 3, are fair and impartial in serving the public and each other in the performance of their duties. 4, are familiar with the principles of ethics, and 5, encourage ethical practices which protect, advance, and promote the public interest above all else. X2, applicability. A, this code shall apply to all current officials and employees, whether elected or appointed, paid, unpaid, full-time, part-time, as well former officials and other employees when specifically stated in this code. B, if one or more sections or provisions of this code conflicts with any state, federal law, statute, rule, city charter, regulation, or order of any court of competent jurisdiction, the law, statute, rule, city charter, regulation, or court shall prevail. C, if any section, subsection, paragraph, sentence, clause, or phase of the code is, for any reason, held to be unconstitutional, invalid, ineffective by any court of contempt jurisdiction, such decision shall not affect the validity of the effectiveness of the remainder of the code, which shall remain valid, applicable, and in effect. Areas of interest, gifts outside employer or business, conflicts of interest, nepotism, periodic disclosure of ownership of real estate and business interest, whistleblower protection. And that is a summary of
Thank you,
the Code of Ethics.
Councilman Galliano, I appreciate that. Communication H, Mr. Chairman, we are going to hold, and that'll conclude legislative matters.
Thank you, Councilman Bruno. Also, to say it, to reframe again, at 6:50 PM will be a public session for the ordinance for eminent domain. At 6:55, public session for the ethics ordinance. That will be March 13th.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Adoption of ordinances in previous presentations, any? Council liaison reports, any? Any new business? Go ahead.
So, Mr. Chairman, is Lee still here? I have some questions. And he's
Lee.
the only one from the city that could. I don't know. I'm sorry, I'll make it quick, I promise. I'll make it quick, I'm sorry. Steve might be able to touch me. I'm sorry. I just died for you. It'll be quick, I promise.
We don't believe you.
Ay, ay, ay.
What's up?
What are we looking at, a
Our
picture?
picture. What? Our picture? What did you do?
I know, I saw something, but it's all scraped it against something.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
I really need some water.
You don't want this.
Lee, I have a couple questions. I watched the MAR meetings, I know a lot of us watch the MAR meetings, and at the last meeting, I listened to Mr. Jackson say that he was talking about the compensatory payouts for, time that people supposedly worked that they got paid for. And he said that it happened in previous administrations. So I did a little digging, because it's what I do, and I talked to several people from other administrations, and they said, absolutely not, it doesn't happen, it's never happened. So I'm wondering, and since I know you're the only person here, and I'm not really even sure if you're the right person to be asking, we should be asking the finance department, can we get some proof, some documentation that shows that this is what happens here at City Hall? Because in my mind, and I've said this before to everyone on the council, and I tried to make a motion to call that money back, and no one was in agreement with me. Is there some way that we can get some documentation or proof that other appointed or city employees have gotten compensatory time
Yes.
payouts?
I have that, and I can give you that. It has been done in the past.
It has
And I
been
can, yeah, I can get
Is
you all
it
that.
in the
information.
budget? Don't they budget for it too?
It was, the last time it was done, I think, was 2016. I mean, not 2016. 2016? Yes, 2016.
It's in the
Okay,
budget.
so if we could just get some
Yeah, I'll-
proof of
I'll
that.
get you the whole thing.
Just because it's something that keeps
It's
coming
fine.
up, and I've been
Easily,
thinking about it.
easily obtained.
So is it all appointed and all employees? I mean, we talked about exempt and non-exempt, so say for instance, let's talk about not Mr. Jackson, our previous, finance director, Mr. Chaplinsky. Was he given any compensatory time payout?
Yeah, I don't want to, I'll get you the list.
Okay.
I don't want to speak in this forum about a particular individual. They're not here.
Okay.
So that's probably not appropriate.
Don't
Um,
we redact their names? Because I think we got that report ourselves many years ago. There
You've
was a-
probably received it before, but
Yeah,
it's
we
not,
did.
it's no big
No,
deal.
I'm not
It's-
saying that.
It's
I'm
easily
just-
obtained. It's
okay,
easily obtained.
So I'm asking you that because I
Yeah.
already know the answer, and the
Yeah, yeah.
answer is that he didn't get it. And I have the email from him that shows that he didn't get the payout.
Who did?
Mr. Chaplinsky,
Why would he?
Why would he?
because everyone else did. Why wouldn't he? If he submitted the hours.
What are you talking about, ethics? Ethics form?
If, I mean, I'm just
Wasn't he
saying.
fired?
Yeah, I just don't feel comfortable talking about one specific individual, especially
Okay.
if they're not here.
I'm just curious because if we do for some, we have to do for all.
I'm going to get you the list. It's
Okay.
easily obtained.
Thank you. I appreciate it. That's it. I just want to share, I know, I just want to share the email from him because he said that he submitted for it and he didn't get it. So I just want to pass this around to the
But
council.
this is the gentleman that we fired?
He was like, yeah.
I'm good.
Okay. Well,
No, I'm just,
I just,
I don't think we should be looking at this unless he's notified that we're discussing him.
oh, yeah.
I did notify him. And he,
No, I don't mean you, I
Yeah.
mean the officially.
okay.
Well, is it appropriate for us to look at one ex-employee's information without notice? No.
My interpretation of state law is you're supposed to give that person notice. They're allowed to
Yeah,
have
I
the
don't-
matter discussed in
Okay,
executive
then
session.
I'll take it back and then can we notice him and that he's gonna be? No.
Who-
I don't know, I just feel like this, if we, the point is that if we're gonna do for one, or two, or three, then we should do for all. If we're gonna, I mean, let's face it, this is all of our taxpayers' money. It's Councilwoman Hosky's money, it's my money, it's, Patricia Bolletari's money, it's Stephen Mullen's money, it's everybody's money. And if we're gonna keep giving money away for things that, for instance, exempt employees should not get overtime. They are exempt. I have worked in many positions where I have never gotten, and I've worked 60, 70 hours a week, sometimes 80, and I never got overtime pay, compensatory time. Sometimes I got a little extra time off, but I just don't think it's fair. And this is my personal feeling.
There are laws for that.
Right,
That govern that.
right,
So there are situations where people who are exempt
right.
can get overtime, because there are
Right.
laws that dictate that. But
Right.
I don't know anything about this particular
Right.
individual, but I'm
Right.
just saying that statement is not necessarily accurate, so we gotta be careful making
Right.
that kind of a statement.
Right,
That's all.
but I mean, think about, we had people that got $30,000, $20,000, $10,000.
I'm not saying it's right, I'm just saying.
Right, so, and it's always gonna bother me, because and I'm sitting here and I'm speaking on behalf of people that have brought it to me too, not just for myself, so.
I'll get you the list.
Thank you.
All set, Councilman?
Yes.
Councilman Quagliani?
I just have two re-requests, if you will. I think 2 or 3 council meetings ago, I asked for a list of our city fleet, who they're assigned to, and if they're take-home cars or not. And then also what we just discussed tonight, I'd like to get a list of our open grants and the ones that still need to be drawn down and what those amounts are.
I got it 3 times.
Can I just add to that? And if they are take-home cards, what's the document or policy that governs their use? Because I'm not interested in going through this. Can we just find out now if you have a take-home card and it's for personal use, like what is the document that governs that? Huh?
It's the policy.
The policy on it, please. I don't know.
Well, I don't know who maintains the,
Huh?
who maintains the
If I
fleet.
don't have a policy, like my company has a policy, you have to sign it before you get a car.
I send it to the mayor. She could decide where it goes.
Yes.
I've been asked.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you.